So do you miss teaching?
Sometimes, yes. If I chose that path of teacher, I would have teaching, let's say, 50 or 100 students. But now through this platform, we have 100,000 registered students. So, yes and no. These were the four problems. So to solve this, we launched Cherry Learn, and we wanted to make it India's most affordable e-learning platform. So no better price than 1 rupee per day, right? Today my schedule was fully tight and I was not able to go through the questions. So anyhow, like whatever you ask, will spontaneously answer. So however it be.
So
So
Srinidhi, that is even better then, that you
yeah,
are
yeah.
not prepared with the questions, right? So
All right, all right.
yeah, great. So thanks a lot, Srinidhi, for coming for this. And let me also give you a disclaimer that
Yeah.
this is my first one, right? So we both are going to explore this thing absolutely impromptu, right?
Right, right, right.
So yeah, great. Okay, so Sridhari, just wanted to welcome you for the podcast that we are just starting off, and the whole purpose is to actually interact with the entrepreneurs and leaders in this industry who are actually working on the education space, education tech space. There are a lot of myths which are there around education tech. In fact, a whole bunch of people are really questioning this space now, especially because they feel that there is a little bit of funding winter which is going on, and this space is really not, for the future. People are vacating something like this. So we thought that we will address some of those questions as to what people who are actually in it feel about it and where does this really go. So there are a whole bunch of purposes, but before we jump into that, I think Srinidhi, it will be just very exciting to hear about you and your journey before we get into Cherryler, your company. And so, Srinidhi, just tell me, is this your first venture or was there something before that? Were you doing a job before?
Abhijit, first of all, thank you for having me here today. So, yeah, so to answer your questions, so basically, I am from a Tier 4 village in Karnataka. So, what I did is in my school days itself, I started my entrepreneurial journey as a freelancer. So, to make it clear, I have neither worked in a company or a job or something like that. So, I directly started with venture, right? So I started my first venture when I was actually 16 year old. I just completed my 10th standard and straight away got into web development and app development and servicing client. So Cherry Learn is actually technically my third venture, so which I'm building from the last 3.5 years. So before that, the first venture was into software services, and then second venture was actually into product. It was an agri-tech product to help farmers digitize their transactions. So yeah, Cherry Learn is my third venture.
So that's interesting. So why did you never think of taking up a job? Isn't that the normal route? That first take up a job, earn some money, then maybe go into a venture?
So, in a job, what happens is 9 to 5, you sit in an office and you take instructions and you just execute things, what is being told, right? But I wanted to explore the entrepreneurial landscape and wanted to build things on my own. So, that was something which used to excite me even as a school student. So, yeah, that's the main reason I chose the path of entrepreneurship rather than going to a job or even going to a degree college. So the fact is that I completed my formal education till 12th. So after that, my graduation and post graduation, everything is through distance education. So even I would say instead of using the word waste, so probably I spend my time productively of around 5 years instead of going to a degree college. So I built my venture and degree. I did it through distance education. Yeah.
So I'm sure in that journey, there must have been something that you were thankful about. And do you miss something in this? Is there something that you felt that if I had done a job, was there a thought like that ever? That if I had done a job, maybe things would have been a little different?
Abhishek, definitely. If you if you do some job first and then you venture into something, definitely there is an advantage wherein you have 360-degree view of both being an employer and an employee. So I definitely sometime think I lack that perspective of an employee, right? So while you deal with your employees, but I try my best to cope up with that by sitting with the employees and understanding their perspective. So yeah, so I would definitely say if someone uh, went for a job and had that 9 to 5 experience and then ventured, so definitely they will have a bit more a little bit more takeaways than a person who directly ventured into something. Yeah.
And I'm sure, in your life, you must have, come across because this is a big decision, right? It's an extremely big decision of not going for a job and straight away going into a venture and etc. How was your family support for something like this?
Yeah, basically, I actually come from a very humble family background. So neither of my parents had a fixed regular income, right? So we are actually from a lower middle class family, and it was actually the risk appetite to take this decision would be much more higher than another person who had a stable financial background. Yeah, so but the thing is, in my case, the thing which worked out well was that when I started my first venture of software services as a school student,
Mhm.
it worked out well for me. I started to earn a decent earning back then, which gave me a courage to 100% dive into entrepreneurial things. Or else I would completely agree with you. Let's say if my first venture would not work well, so I need to definitely fund myself and my family, right? So I was fortunate enough that my first venture worked, so that I continued my entrepreneurial journey. Right?
And so, of course, the entrepreneurial journey has a lot of tough situations, right? So tell me one tough situation which you came across and you were able to navigate it. That is my first question. And another tough situation that you could not navigate through and you had to change your course. Would be very interesting to hear that.
Right. So the difficult time was when we pivoted from a service-based company to a product-based company. So as you know, a service-based company makes a certain revenue. You have a set of clients, and at the month
Yes,
of the at the end of the month,
yes,
you know
yes.
the certain revenues being generated. But when you pivoted to a product-based company, you spend a lot of money and time building your product, but you are not really sure that how much money will hit into your account next month, right?
Correct.
So it was a time wherein we pivoted into product. We spent a lot on product development, but initial couple of months, so almost no money was hitting our account. So that was the most difficult time. But we figured out things, and that time passed very smoothly, and we were able to achieve product market fit and achieve revenue. So that is one thing which was a difficult moment in the journey. So which we navigated across. Yeah. So and second thing is, as you asked, the things which
Unsurmountable challenge that you may have faced.
yeah. So such kind of challenge, if I were to recall, I would say being 100% putting you in the shoes of the customers. So what happens is when you build a product, so your product is your baby, right? So basically you think in one perspective, but let's say if there is no product market fit, or let's say there is some friction between your product and customer feedback. So sometimes like even now I think that I need to work a bit more on that aspect of putting myself in the user's perspective and working towards a product. So that's something which I'm yet to figure out. Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that, working on a product is a completely different ball game to a service. My previous two ventures were actually services. And yes, the revenues come much, much faster. But my
Yes.
current venture is a product venture, and that is a big, big challenge. That product is never ending story. It is a
Exactly.
constant development story, and it's a never-ending story.
Exactly.
No, no,
Exactly.
exactly. That's what. So tell me, is this? I'm sure as a young boy, you're also not very old still, but as a young boy, young child, uh, did you have any career plans, or you had something like this in your mind from very beginning? What was it that you were hoping to do, planning to do as a young boy, as a young child?
So basically, when I was in school, myself and even my parents wanted me to become a teacher, right?
Oh,
So yeah. So the thing is, probably if not entrepreneurship, I would end up being a teacher or lecturer in a college. The thing is, what I used to do is I used to like the process of learning and teaching others. So even I had a YouTube channel by the name Science Sarvagna, right? Which I
oh,
created as a high school student. Even it's available out there in YouTube. So wherein as a eighth standard student, I used to go through the syllabus of MSc and PhD physics, quantum physics. I used to go through the syllabus and I used to, use my mother's green sari as my green screen and record some videos in mobile and edit it in phone and upload to YouTube, right? So going through a concept and teaching others was a passion and still is the passion. So that's why even when I choose a product, I chose Impact EdTech rather than any other product, so that the teaching aspect is still there, right? Yeah, so that is something which I wanted to become as a school student, but as the time passed, yeah, here I'm sitting in front of you as an entrepreneur. Yeah.
so do you miss teaching? Do you miss that experience, that feeling of teaching?
Sometimes yes, but the better part is that if I chose that path of teacher, I would have teaching, let's say, 50 or 100 students. But now through this platform, we have 100,000 registered students. So yes and no.
Okay. So tell me, of course, and that's a very, very root question, that, that teaching which you talk to me about, right, is something that you are doing physically in class in front of 50 children. And now this is online. And even though you may have 100,000 children who are taking up your courses and etc., the experience is completely different, right? The whole satisfaction level of teaching those 50 children in front is different from creating a product through which 100,000 children are gaining knowledge, right? The two are extremely different experiences. And this is what something which a whole lot of people really talk about, that online teaching is really not that impactful, impressive. It doesn't give you that satisfaction. What do you feel about that?
I completely agree with what you're saying. So, online teaching is definitely not that effective as one-on-one physical classrooms. So that's the reason when even we developed our product, so we 100% did not focus into teaching. So even if you see our company's pitch, so that is one of the problem statement, right? So yeah. So what we focus is 9 to 4. Anyway, a student is actually learning from a teacher. If
Mm,
same thing is actually repeated either by tuition classes or even through an app, through online teaching, it's repetition and boring. So that's the reason in our platform we did not include live classes or human recorded classes. So in our platform, how students learn is that we actually have games, right? So Cherry Learn is all about gamified learning. So there
mm,
is not even a single video where a teacher is teaching, a physical human is teaching. So the teaching happens through animated videos, and the learning happens by playing some games. So that's something which we are really conscious about, right? And personally, yeah. So that's about Cherry Learn. So personally, as you told, whether I get that sort of satisfaction, definitely not. So that's the reason what I do is. Occasionally people call me as speaker and for events in colleges, so wherein I will get the opportunity to interact with 400 500 students in offline mode. So that's how I complete my desire of teaching and get that satisfaction. Yeah.
So even from your satisfaction, it's a hybrid model, right? On
Yes,
one
yes,
side, you
yes.
are teaching students in class in
exactly,
front of those physically live and etc. But on the other side,
exactly,
you're also getting the satisfaction of reaching out to 100,000 students through your
exactly.
methods and through your products. So it's a very interesting hybrid model. And that is
Yes,
what I think all education is going to, that it's
yes,
not a pure physical teaching, it's not a pure online methodology. It is actually a very interesting hybrid model which is emerging. Would you
exactly.
agree there?
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Okay, so one more thing. I'm sure there must have been many moments of pride for you in this journey, whether in this venture or the previous two ventures which you have had. Tell me that one moment of pride where you felt that, you know, this is the reason why I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And thank God I'm an entrepreneur and not went into a job. Which was that moment of pride that you recall?
So there are quite a few instances, but to mention about three of them.
Mm-hmm,
So one thing is we actually do a lot of rural outreach programs wherein we physically go to government schools and educate parents about how they can use edtech and make their students child's learning more effective.
mm-hmm,
So there was one such instance wherein I physically visited to one government school in a rural area wherein one daily wage worker, so his child was actually coming to that particular school. So when we explained about cherry learn, so we will speak about cherry learn in the later
yes,
part of the
yes,
discussion,
yes,
but
yes.
cherry learn, what we do is we are offering the subscription fee is 1 rupee per day. So we
Mm-hmm,
wanted to become India's most affordable e-learning platform, so that's the reason we priced it at 1 rupee per day, which is about 365 rupees per year, right? So
mm-hmm.
that parent, so he actually physically gave us 365 rupees in cash, all 100 rupee, 50 rupee, 10 rupee, and that 5 rupee coin, right? So he gave it to me and he asked me to give him access to Cherryland. So at that moment, I felt like, oh, this is the moment
Yes.
which we all anticipated. So that's one thing. And two other things were after people came to know about the Cherryland and what we are doing in Cherryland.
Mm-hmm.
So we got two awards which are purely organic. So most of the times, as we all know, most of the awards are paid, right? Or else you nominate yourself, or a lot of commercial things are there. But two major awards were, one award was actually given by Deccan Herald newspaper. It is called as Deccan Herald Changemakers. So every
Okay.
year they give it out to 20-25 people.
Mm-hmm.
So in one press release, I was speaking about Cherry Learn, and one
Mm-hmm.
journalist was too much inspired by what we are doing, and he approached me. He took my biodata and he nominated me to that award. And after a month, I get the call from the Deccan Herald team that I'm actually selected to that. Wherein that year they had got 800 nominations across the country, and the jury of the award was actually headed by Captain G.R. Gopinathan,
Ah,
who
okay.
had a
Yes, yes, yes.
just a year back, I had watched his movie based on
Yes,
his life story.
correct,
So
correct.
it was a fanboy moment wherein he nominated me and finalized the award. So that was one moment. Second thing was, just 4 months back, we got the Hindu Changemakers. I was named as the Young Changemaker of the Year, and even that was very surprising. So I just get a call from their team, and they're like, "We want to meet you and do a story on it." So I didn't really know that we have won an award or something. So next day they come to our office and they meet us, and then they reveal that we have won an award. And the award ceremony is happening on November 3rd in New Delhi, right? So then we go to New Delhi, and when I'm entering the conference hall, I didn't know what that award was all about, and I didn't do a lot of research on that. So then I see all familiar faces sitting in the front row. I'm seeing our Union Minister for Power and Renewable Energy sitting there. I'm seeing our Governor of RBI, Mr. Shaktikant Das, sitting over there. I'm seeing Mr. Mehta, the MD of Amul, sitting over there. So then I realized that this year, six people from the entire country have been finalized. I am one among them, and RBI Governor Shaktikant Das is also my co-awardee, and even Mr. Mehta, the MD of Amul, is also my co-awardee, and the award will be given by the Union Minister, Mr. R.K. Singh, sir. So that moment, I was fully nervous, overwhelmed, and humbled all at a time. So these are the three moments which I cannot forget at all. Yeah.
That's brilliant. So, tell me one more thing that I'm sure that you must have met very many inspiring people in your life, right? And of course, biggest stalwarts. What I want to hear from you is, tell me about one advice that you got from any of the stalwarts which is still stuck with you, because many a times that is what happens, especially with us entrepreneurs, that someone tells you something and it then sticks with you for life, right? What is that one advice that you got? And the other is, not from a stalwart. If you met somebody, common man, common person, your customer or somewhere, and etc., or maybe a student for that matter, where you heard something and it stuck with you. So if you have these two incidents, we'll be love to hear that.
Again, I can share three such things. One is actually from my mother, right? So the advice was that never go behind the money or commercial aspects of things, right? Just focus on impact. So that's the first thing which I will stick on to. So second thing is I actually met as in Mr. Padma Shri Harekala Hajabba, he's the one who inaugurated Cherryland, right? So to speak about him, he is actually a fruit seller. He sits in roadside and sells oranges, right? So one day, what happened was one French lady came to him to purchase some oranges, right? So she actually spoke to him in English, and he was not able to speak in English. He was not able to reply. So at that moment, it hit him that how important education is, right? So then he decided to dedicate his entire life to education, and whatever his life savings were there, he invested on a land and he built a school and gave it to government to run. And so for thousands of students have been educated through that institute. So when we were thinking whom to invite as the main guest to inaugurate Cherila, so we thought there is no best person than Padma Shri Harekala Hajab to inaugurate. And next is to choose a venue. When we used to have this discussion, so instead of choosing a conference hall or a big auditorium or something, we chose a government school in a village as our venue for the inaugural ceremony, right? So at that point of time, when I met Padma Shri Harekala Hajappa, so to be frank, his English is not so great, and let's say he's not that well versed with the current affairs. But in his eyes, the only thing what I saw was the hunger to make people educated, right? So it was very, very inspiring to meet him, right? So then he invited us to his residence and we went there. And that was a person in my life, I would say, was really, really inspiring, and it validated and it boosted our vision even more. So that's the second thing. So third thing is recently, 2 3 months back, I met Mr. Raghunath ji, the CEO of Mafetlal Industries Limited, right? So in Mumbai, right? So through our friend, we met him. So we had a lot of discussion, and one advice what he gave to me is that, so being an entrepreneur, so when you look for collaboration, don't skip government from your mind, right? So government is a party who can be potential collaborator for anyone, right? So you be it edtech, be it fintech, or be it agritech. So just consider that you can actually collaborate with government. So that thing was in my back of the mind, and moving forward, we approached government of Karnataka, and there was their program called as Elevate Karnataka, right? We participated there and we presented Cheriland to their jury. And just last week, ITBT department tweeted that we are also shortlisted, and we recently signed MOU just 3 days back. And government of Karnataka is actually now funding Cheriland, right?
So that's brilliant because, so what you first mentioned, that don't run after money, make an impact from your mother. Then it was how important is education from your mentor. And third is that if you really want to make a very, very large impact, it is the government, because the kind of access that the government can provide you, which is something that we always believe that collaborating with the government is going to be so cumbersome that you never ever even think of something like that. That's very, very interesting. No, thanks a lot, Srinidhi. That's brilliant pearls from your life, and I'm really, really happy that we could, you could share that with us. That's really nice. Now, tell me a little bit about Cherry Learn. What is it that you feel proud about Cherry Learn? What exactly is Cherry Learn trying to do?
So Cherry Learn is actually an impact edtech, not just an edtech, right? So that's the difference between edtech and impact edtech. So there is a very thin line of difference, but if you actually go deep, edtech, what happens is, yeah, the priority will be educating students or enabling students with their learning, but there is commercial aspect which is involved, right? In an edtech, commercial things comes first, but when it comes to impact edtech, we see the impact first. And when it comes to commercial aspects, we don't really focus on profits too much. We just focus on sustainability. So that's a difference. And Cherry Learn, we started off 3.5 years back to solve four core problems which the education landscape had. So first problem was unaffordable edtech. So it is a not new thing to us, right? So it's out there in all the medias, and now it's a hot topic out there, right? Parents, pushing parents with the dreams and making them, go for personal loans to subscribe to an edtech product is also something which we have come across, right? The average subscription fee in India for an edtech product is anywhere between 10,000 rupees to 90,000 rupees, which 95% of the Indians can't afford, right? So second problem was there was no edtech player completely focusing on vernacular language, right? So as a matter of fact, 120 million students are currently in primary classes in India, right? So the majority of the youth population is actually in primary and higher primary, right? And most of them actually go to vernacular language schools like Kannada medium, Malayalam medium, Tamil medium, Marathi medium, or whatever, right? But there were no edtech products to support them. So that was the second problem. And the third problem is actually the focus on learning was limited. So as you told, edtech is actually not that much effective in teaching because teaching should be done through offline mode. So where edtech can help is actually to learn the syllabus which is actually being taught in school. But all the edtechs were focusing on teaching, and it was not effective. And so fourth problem is the edtech was accessible to people from tier 1 and tier 2 cities, but tier 3 and tier 4 cities were not accessible. So one can argue that edtech is available out there in online. So even a tier 4 person can actually download an app, but that's not the question. But when it comes to creating awareness and outreach programs, the edtechs were only focusing on the city areas, not the villages. So these were the four problems. So to solve this, we launched Cherry Learn, and we wanted to make it India's most affordable e-learning platform. So no better price than 1 rupee per day, right? So we could have priced it at 3,999 or let's say 999. Still, it's affordable compared to 40,000-50,000 rupees. But we wanted to be very honest and genuine in terms of our pricing. So that's the reason we kept the pricing as 1 rupee per day. Second thing is in Cherry Learn, along with English, we do have English, but we also have vernacular languages like Kannada and Malayalam, and we are adding every possible vernacular languages every year. So we want to add at least 3 vernacular language every academic year. So, and our outreach programs is mostly focused on tier 3 and tier 4 cities. And even our corporate office is actually in a tier 4 village, not in Bangalore or Mangla, right? So, so that's how we, impact in Cherry Learn. And so far, Cherry Learn is being downloaded by close to 100,000 students, right? Mostly from tier 3 and tier 4 areas. So that's about Cherry Learn and what we are doing in Cherry Learn. So yeah.
So there's a very interesting differentiation that you told me that in EdTech, people were focusing on teaching, while you are focusing on learning, right? Tell me a little bit more on that. How are you enabling learning?
Yeah, so what happens is when I say learning, let's say primary students, the best way to make them learn is through games, right? So instead of making them by heart, let's say five fives or 25 or whatever, you make them play a game. Let's say give them some chocolates, and with the chocolates physically do some activities and teach them maths. So that's the most effective way to teach them, right? So when it comes to learning, so in Cherry Learn, what we do is all of the syllabus is actually converted into games like matching and dragging and dropping and things like that. So each page of their textbook is actually converted into one or the other game. So students will open Cherry Learn, play the games, and they will learn their syllabus. So that's how it goes.
Okay, so that actually brings me to another question, that once you have there's teaching, there's learning, which is happening. Now it's all about testing the learning part. Right? How do you believe that exams is the right way of understanding that how much has the student learned, or are there different methods? There are better ways to do that, and etc. And in the kind of competitive scenario that we all stay in, that currently the examinations are the only way of actually assessing the learning part of a child.
So when we speak about the exams, it's really important to also speak about how the exams are being conducted and how the student is actually assessed. So typically, traditionally speaking about how exams are being conducted in school, so I don't think it is the appropriate way to assess a student, because what happens is in exam you give a set of syllabus and there is a day before that day you revise the syllabus and you buy hard sometimes, and most of the times when it comes to Indian schools, and you take the exams, right? Even when I was in school, so exams are the things which I used to hate a lot, right? But later what used to happen was I figured out the cheat code for exam. So wherein, see, why I used to hate exam was that because the exams were not effective. But again, the solution was that again, since the exams being not so effective, so we can actually predict the type of questions the teachers can actually ask. So it is as simple as going through past 3 or 4 years question papers, and there is important topics for everything, right? So there is actually a popular joke, right? So let's say in biology, if the syllabus is about digestion, right? So there is a lot of things which is involved in digestion. You put the food in your mouth, in the saliva, through saliva, percentage of digestion is being done, and how it goes inside. In stomach, you have HCl, and then it goes to intestine, the bile juice secretion, and all those things. But the teacher is like, see, all these process, there are about 10 points, this will come for 5 marks, right? But the student is lazy enough and he is not able to learn all the 10 points. So then the student is very smart student, and he is like, uh, digestion is a process which starts with your right hand and it will end with your left hand. And the student writes that, and he expects the teacher to give 1 marks instead of 5 marks. Right? So yeah, so that's a situation when it comes to exams. So now it is actually left for your imagination to conclude whether examination is effective or not. So again, it's all about how you conduct exams, what are the types of questions you put in the exam, and whether the same set of exam is being given to all the students, or you segregate students based on their interest and their learning abilities, and give them exams. So that's something which we need to look into. Yeah.
Now look at it from the perspective that when you are focusing on the learning part, right? Are you preparing them in some way for, because examinations are a reality, right? How they're conducted and how students crack those examinations and etc. But that is a reality today, and I think it will be a reality for quite some time. So when you focus on this learning part, do you prepare them for these examinations, that how to crack the examinations, what is to be done, or you're purely dissociating yourself from the whole examination part and just focusing on the learning part?
No, definitely the focus on examinations are there because you cannot completely, avoid that, right? So the focus is always to improve the learning outcome of the student, because if see again there is a famous saying, right? So instead of giving someone fish, you just teach him how to catch the fish, right? So the effort of cherry learn is actually teach students how to learn effectively, right? So that they need not go for the path of by hearting and memorizing things, right? So definitely along with improving the learning outcome, the focus is also to prepare them for exams. So occasionally we give them mock tests, and we educate students on how to take exams. So to answer that question, along with improving learning outcome, we also help the students on how you can actually face your exams. Yeah.
So when you give these mock tests to, we have been interacting with a lot of, uh, you know, uh, these education providers who are providing a lot of content services, whether those are tutorial services or whether those are actual educators providing degree courses or certificate courses and etc. Uh, One of the core things is that like you also mentioned that you take these mock tests for these children. Now, how do you ensure that the mock tests which are taken by these students, that they actually give a very, very genuine effort and there is no cheating that the child indulges in, or that he is giving a very genuine effort into doing that? So obviously, from your perspective, it would be that if someone has taken this course of yours and subscribed to your services, etc., then he should naturally do that. But we know children are children, right? Even if they have, they may try to cheat the system and try to score, better, whether it is for themselves, show to their other classmates, friends, or even to their parents that they have scored very well. So, how do you ensure that these mock tests that you provide are actually, doing the actual job which you want them to do? That children are able to really assess themselves properly.
Abhijit, the thing what we should know is that whenever we conduct exams or mock test, so why do children cheat, right? So why do students cheat? So the answer is, first thing is there is a lot of pressure built around the exams, and let's say if you don't perform well in exams, this will happen. So that may be a questioning from teachers, or parents being dissatisfied or angry on you, right? But if you make the whole process of learning and also the mock test just casual as a game, right? So there is we can actually help the student to ease the pressure of exams. So this is not something which Cherrylearn alone can do. So we need to collaborate with the governments and schools and all the stakeholders, including teachers and parents, to do this possible. But at Cherrylearn, when I say mock test, we don't have any proctoring system or anything. So I think so. That was your question. So like what measures we use to make sure that the children will not cheat. But to be frank, we don't have anything like online proctoring or something, because the thing is, when you do that, even the pressure is more on the student, right? So to be more serious and take the exam, we see what happens is, let's say even you are interviewing a candidate, right, for a job. If you make it very formal and you actually create that pressure, so he will feel nervous, and his all of his inputs may not come out. But let's say you do that interview in a coffee shop and casually you chit chat with him, so he will not have that nervousness and he will open up, right? So that something similar we are trying out here, wherein we don't have any proctoring or something. Like we make the process very casual, that children will not feel this as an exam, right? And put genuine efforts to not cheat, and directly put their inputs and submit, right? So, and here the thing is, in mock test we have option to submit multiple times, right? It's like what happens is, if there is a 10 question and if it is for 10 marks, if you submit once and let's say the mark is 7, you can reattempt again and you can increase your marks to 9. So it will ensure both that the student will put genuine efforts on his learning, plus he will not cheat. Yeah.
So, Srinidhi, don't you think I completely understand that that would be the best way to happen, right? Where that there is no cheating which is happening, and that there is no pressure on the child, and then hence there is no need for him to actually indulge into any malpractices or whatever. But we understand that the reality is pretty far from there, right? Because if that is what our expectation would be of a child, and that is what we all hope for it to be, right? That he should make that genuine effort and etc. But today, at the end of the day, the reality is that examinations do lead to that if you do perform better, then there are better opportunities for you. And, if you haven't performed better, then there are not. So there are, there's a little gap between um, people who get the opportunity and people who don't get the opportunity, and etc. So, and this is something which is, as a reality, the child will have to face the moment he grows and goes into more serious examinations, starting with, let's say, the board examinations, right? And then beyond that, which will be then competitive entrance examinations, then there are going to be job examinations, job interviews, and all of that, etc. So somewhere that little discipline which should possibly come in for him to understand that there are ways to do it, because as he grows, initially he may not, but as he grows, he needs to understand or basically be aware of that these are the things which are going to be there, and from very beginning. In fact, interestingly, when we were working with one school in Pune, and that school principal, actually, when we were implementing the Shinkan system there, and etc., for children who were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There she said that I want to introduce this whole proctoring system right from very beginning itself, from, let's say, from the time that they have any sort of examinations, any sort of tests, class tests or whatever, because they want them to get into a habit that cheating is not an option, because that is what the proctoring system. I mean, we will possibly discuss about this offline sometime. But the kind of proctoring system that we have, it is a completely non-interfering proctoring system. That it doesn't say that, it doesn't give any prompts, it doesn't give any warnings, it doesn't raise any red flags, it doesn't do anything. So that basically the child actually is free to do whatever that he wants to. In fact, we encourage children to do that. You want to look left, right, up, down. You want to do anything, whatever that you want to do. Don't curtail your natural movements and stuff like that, and etc. While you are answering a question, just don't try and cheat at that point in time. So she said that she wanted to introduce that system as early as possible, so that children get into a behavior that it is okay to indulge in any natural action, behavior while taking an examination. That's not a problem, but just don't cheat, because the systems can catch you, and then it can be a little bit of a challenge for you. So which is what it is, that for them to get this learning from the very beginning itself, that natural movements, reactions, anything is not a problem at all. You are not under pressure. There's no tension. There are no red flags, no warnings, nothing at all. But just don't cheat. So the moment you start inculcating that habit into them at a very early age, that's when they basically get into later part as well. That the systems are so strong that if they do try to cheat, then that is something which can happen. So do you feel that makes sense, or you still feel that there's a different behavior that you would like children to basically get used to?
No, definitely it makes sense because in Cherryland's perspective, currently the focus is actually K5, that is first standard to fifth standard. But definitely when it comes to, let's say, 8, 9, 10, so whatever proctoring measures you told, definitely it makes sense. Because let's say first standard to fifth standard, the primary classes, if we actually provide them the ecosystem wherein the exams are very casual and they don't have any pressure, so then definitely we can prepare them for a proctored ecosystem wherein they are more conscious about not to cheat. So what I believe is for K5, making the exam casual without any proctoring makes sense. But when it comes to, let's say, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So I completely agree with whatever solutions you just suggested here.
So yeah, I mean, that is what basically the one that I was talking about is, where she said that to introduce it even earlier. than even 6, 7. Introduce it right from the very beginning, like you said, from K5 onwards. So she was talking about introducing, because those are the formative years, right? Very, very specifically, the K5 is the formative years, really, where certain habits which get into place. So if the habit gets into place, that even if they try to do little bit, and it'll be noticed, and etc. So that is something which gets into them as a habit right from the very beginning, and so that is the reason why that principle was talking about introducing it much sooner, so that it becomes a sort of a natural habit for them, and etc. So because the fortunate or unfortunate part is that the examinations are a reality and will be a reality for a very long time in a child's life, till quite some time. So, inculcating that natural habit from within is something which is very critical, because she wanted to make them understand that by indulging into even very innocent kind of, any sort of cheating or whatever, if they did gain 2 more marks or 5 more marks and etc., is actually of no value. So that is something that she wanted to actually incorporate. So she was talking about K5, especially from the time when the examinations actually start.
Yeah, Abhijit, we can definitely do that. But given that even we actually put a framework for teachers on how they, assess them and how they react when the marks are out. For example, so when it comes to K5, the pressure as such on students are less. But why do they might cheat in K5 is that, let's say, a fourth standard student, and in a class, let's say the results are out, the teacher will call out that, okay, the student, this particular student XYZ scored 100 out of 100. Let's all stand up and give a clap, right? So, let's see, this student too scored 99, and let's appreciate them, right? But then there is no appreciation for students who scored 70, 75, or 80, right? So, if we change this and implement proctoring, I think it would be very, very effective, because there is no reason for students to cheat, right? So the way you look at a student who scored 100 and the way you look at a student who scored 75, if it is same, right? Then if we put proctoring, or if we not put proctoring, I would think the result would be same, right?
Understood. Understood. No, point taken. I mean, where you want to introduce and where you don't want to introduce, that's a whole ball game, which is a very tough question. It's a very long term sort of a question, and which really needs to happen. But do you see? So, just ending my whole thing, and we have had a great conversation. But I still would love to hear your views on where do you think the education really needs to go, right? Do you think that the way, if we talk specifically about the NEP, right, the National Education Policy, do you think it has covered most of the areas? Are there any areas which are still left as for you, which haven't been touched, and something that the government needs to really focus on?
NEP is a very, very great initiative. Even I have met Mr. Sanjay Kumar, whose brainchild is actually NEP, right? In New Delhi. The thing is, NEP is a perfect document on paper, and let's say if it is actually implemented even 60-70%, I would think it will give a different direction to the entire education system, and it would be a really great thing. But the main friction what I see is between for the successful implementation of NEP is the friction with the state governments, right? So a few state governments are not ready to accept NEP. A few state governments are coming up with SEP, their own version of NEP, and things like that. What I feel is all the states and centers should come together and work in terms of modifying NEP, let's say implementing NEP, and my view is, if NEP is implemented effectively, right? So NEP is a really great initiative which would solve majority of the problems which the current education system has. And what I encourage is people. I encourage people to actually go through NEP, right? before they comment on NEP and have their views on it, right? So yeah.
So, can you be a little bit more specific on what you think is the most effective part of NEP, and what is the basically what is the most revolutionizing part of NEP which they have proposed, as per you?
There are many, yeah, there are many things in NEP which can revolutionize education, like the flexibility to choose your stream, right? So you might be interested in physics at the same time you might be interested in let's say history, right? So NEP gives you that freedom as a student, right? So second thing is NEP actually focuses a lot on digital education as well, right? So that is something which can revolutionize the education, because uh, when we actually see the practical aspects in school, there is a lot of difference between student teacher ratio, right? So we have schools wherein two teachers are actually taking care of first standard to eighth standard, right? So they have a common class wherein if the teacher stands in the center, she is teaching third standard. If the teacher is standing in the right, she's teaching a different class. So things like that. So digital education actually can bridge the gap between the students and the teachers ratio. And third thing is also the focus on soft skills and skills which can directly make students livelihood, right? So this is three among the many things which can actually revolutionize the education system.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Srinidhi. I mean, it was amazing, really, really amazing talking to you. And, because I share your vision from an education perspective, that my belief is also that if India is really planning to be a developed nation and really believe that we can be the driving economy of the world, driving nation, driving country of the world, then education is what will take us there. And education has to start, the effort and the education has to start right from the very basics. And I'm not speaking not from purely perspectives of the age of the child, which of course that is happening, but like you are doing, that you are doing it from the tiers which are way, way below, and you're trying to make them, the whole understanding part is more important than the rote learning, which has been the education foundation for the longest time. I now believe that just like earlier people used to talk about roti kapra or makan, it is actually roti kapra makan or gyan, right, which is now
Definitely,
become the fourth pillar of
definitely,
existence for human beings. Thanks a lot, Srinidhi, and I hope to connect up with you sometime. I don't know if you travel to Mumbai ever, but would love to actually meet you in person and see the kind of setup that you have. It'll be my pleasure to meet, and it was a great pleasure to interact with you, Srinidhi.
definitely. Thank you so much for doing this podcast, and really looking forward to meet you
Yes,
in person, and equally excited to yeah, like meet you. Yeah, right.
excellent. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, thank you, thank you,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Bye bye.